Hello everyone, we have an international audience joining us today for the second round of the iRacing IndyCar Challenge, this time at the Barber Motorsport Park, where we were meant to be for the next round of the real-life IndyCar series, but instead of the 10th anniversary of that first Barber race, we are instead going to run the first ever Honda Grand Prix of Alabama in the virtual iRacing simulator. I'm joined by my three teammates, Brian Carey, Adam Blocker, and Andrew Kinsella. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, really excited to see what happens this race.
Fantastic over here.
So obviously, last time out, Sage Karam getting the win at Watkins Glen, and your field of 25 drivers is going to have 4 new additions. We have obviously Robert Wickens making his return to the race seat for the first time since his horrific accident at Pocono. Then we also have Ed Carpenter, Jack Harvey, and who is the fourth driver that I'm forgetting, guys?
Scott Dixon.
Yes, of course, Scott Dixon.
Forgot Scott Dixon.
Well, I was just trying to take a look at some of these drivers coming around to start that first qualifying lap, but so obviously with these 4 new drivers, guys, who are you predicting as your race favorite as we start the first lap of qualifying here?
Well, as far as the new drivers, I'm going to make 2 picks. I don't know if that's a good idea. One of the existing drivers who I think is going to be best, and of the new drivers. I think, and I hope, but I really do think that Robbie's going to probably be one of the better of the new drivers. He's probably pretty hungry right now. As far as the existing drivers, I know Newgarden put in a lot of practice here, put in the track in real life, so I'm going to pick him to be best overall.
What about you, Adam, next?
I think just based off of practice times, I think I'm going to go for willpower today. Barber's a good track for him, and if he can qualify on pole here, he'll put him in a good position for the race. Now the new guys, I'll pick Scott Dixon, because I think even if he doesn't quite have the pace, he's still trying to get up to speed. He's always really consistent and always finishes the race, and I think that'll be important.
All right, and last but not least, Andrew, who's your pick for today's race?
So for me, I think I'm going to have to go with Sage Karam on this one. Sage is really experienced here, and he's been fast all week, and when it comes down to it in qualifying, I think he's a guy who can just get it done, and passing is hard, so I don't think that anybody's going to be able to pass him if he gets out front. For the new drivers, I'm going to go with Robert Wickens. I've seen some really positive things from him in practice. He looks right up to speed, so I think he's going to do really well here.
Now, obviously, Robert Wickens using for the first time what will be a new type of driving to him. He's going to have to use controls very similar to Alex Zanardi, who used hands controls since his accident. But my pick is your current pole sitter, Felix Rosenquist. We've been watching him as he comes around for his second flying lap. He showed good pace last time out at Watkins Glen, but Sage Karam did have that little bit extra pace, but maybe this time Felix, with a little bit more iRacing experience now, going to show the pace as he comes around to finish his second lap, going slightly faster with a 1:06.089.
I don't think that time will stand based on practice.
Sage Karam, race winner last time, coming around to finish his first flying lap. Let's see where that's going to put him on the board. A 1:06.204. So, sorry, no, that's Alex Palou with a 1:06.204. Sage Karam, a very slow lap, a 1:36.1 there.
I think he may have made a mistake on that lap.
So all the pressure on him now, as he's only has 2 laps to get a qualifying time on the board. He's not going to want to start back in 22nd with passing being so tough. What other names are you guys spotting on the list right now that are standing out to you guys?
I think that actually it looks fairly similar to last race, doesn't it? Scott Speeds put in another fast time. Newgarden and McLaughlin are both fast. And Oliver Askew is proving that his speed at Watkins Glen wasn't just a fluke, and he can be up near the top. And all willpower just goes to the top of the time charts.
Sage is coming in to the end of his lap now.
Been a good lap for Sage so far, according to our qualifying graphics. comes across the line all
First
the way.
man in the 105s.
He
And
takes,
I don't think he had anything wrong with his first lap. I think he just took a slow lap to preserve the tires for a second lap.
so it does appear as though Will Power has abandoned his second flying lap. So we follow Robert Wickens, going to set his first qualifying lap time in this iRacing IndyCar Challenge.
He is super smooth right now too. See if that
Yeah,
translates.
and he has been smooth in practice as well. That's the thing that's really impressed me is some of these guys are really pushing really hard, but Robert has been able to produce speed while staying smooth, so I think he'll be really good in race.
And I think, Andrew, we talked about this last time at Watkins Glen, but one thing that some of these real drivers had talked about compared to the real-life car, they're not able to charge the car, the corners just as hard as they are in the real life. So maybe that smooth technique going to help Robert here in the course of this race.
I think that's definitely a possibility, especially corners such as Charlotte's Web where you're coming out and it's really hard to get the power down quickly. Being smooth on the throttle there will gain him a couple of tenths versus some of the guys who might be a little bit rougher and be lifting on and off the throttle.
The main one I was thinking about was the fast left-right at the end of the lap going uphill on the exit of the right. It's really easy to spin there if you're not smooth with your inputs and you know, maybe if you charge the corner a little bit too. I think we're going to have quite a few incidents there. I hope not, but I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we do.
Of course, a little commentator's curse there. Robbie spins at the second to last corner, but he does have one more lap to try and put down a good qualifying time here.
So just a few cars left with just under 3 minutes. Robert Wickens having a small spin in turn 2 this time. Simon Pagino, though, moving himself up into 5th. He's 3 tenths behind Sage Karam in pole position. Let's see how this second lap unfolds as he comes around to the second last corner.
And Rahal has been quick in practice, but he had an off track on his first lap. He's coming around to the end of the second lap.
Simon Pagino crossing the line, staying in that 5th position. Let's go ahead and take a look at Graham Rahal. He's not set a qualifying time yet. Only 2 cars haven't done that, Robert Wickens being the other one. With that lap time, Graham Rahal moving himself up into 10th place.
Bourdais also has not set a lap time yet.
So
yeah, Bourdais is a driver who's been struggling in qualifying trim just to get the laps down. In fact, he might be strategically sort of starting at the back and giving himself some space from some potential first lap carnage here, because this is a very difficult first set of corners to get through cleanly, even in real life, let alone on a sim.
And so we haven't discussed it yet, but there will in fact be a competition caution in this race. So maybe that strategy from Sebastian Bourdais, not the worst idea if he's able to get through those first corners with a clean car and some of his other competitors struggle a little bit more. I think we have a minute left in your qualifying session right now, but all your drivers have finished their time, so the qualifying order is set. I do believe, though, that this means that we're going to have a little bit of a break on NBC. So let's see if we can go ahead and ride on board Sage Karam on his fast qualifying lap. Adam, do you want to talk us through a lap here?
Sure. Let me get on board.
Alright, so we'll start the lap again and just let us know when you're ready to go.
I'm good.
Alright, so coming down to turn 1 here.
Yeah, turn 1's really fast. Just a little lift in this car, maybe a downshift, a gear. You don't have to compromise any for turn 2. If you want to hug the inside for turn 2, you could square it off a little bit, but yeah, it's really crucial to get straight on exit to get a good run through to Charlotte's Web, break around the 2 marker. It's really kind of weird. You don't have to track out all the way on the exit.
The qualifying session just ended, so that's why we lost those onboard pictures. Quickly skip around back to where we were on the track. currently just going around turn 2 and turn 3. But this is obviously a very quick lap. Sage Cameron's pole position time of a 1:05.9, quicker than your track record in real life, a 1:06.6. So as we come around Charlotte's Web, Adam, do you want to pick it back up?
Yeah, he does track out all the way here, but you can also find a lot of grip just on the inside. Then for Museum Corner, it's barely brushed the brakes through one, then over the big curb on the left side, braking for the bottom, and powering out through a flat-out chicane on the back straight. You do have to lift if you're in dirty air behind someone there, which makes it kind of tricky. But yeah, then into here, lift around the one board, trail brake a little bit into the second right, try to straighten the car up over the hill so you don't spin. Then lightly braking into the last chicane, trying to carry as much speed through the right-hander, set up the last left-hander, and early on power for the front straight. So really fast lap, really technical, really easy to miss your mark.
So yeah, that was the pole position lap for Sage Cameron, 1:05.397. I'm not sure exactly what's happening on track right now, but Scott Dixon does appear to be setting a lap time. Let's take a look at him in his PNC bank-powered car. Good to see him on track for the first time this series. I don't believe he's got much iRacing experience, so you know, he is a smooth driver in the real life. How do you think that's going to translate for him coming into iRacing?
I mean, I think it'll help, especially because normally you have a harder time feeling what the car is doing in sim compared to real life. Yeah, I imagine it'll probably help him, you know, maybe not overstep the bounds of the car too much. But also, I think the other thing is he's normally really good on fuel mileage, so if he carries that over to the sim, that'll give him more flexibility in terms of strategy.
He's actually the one that I'm looking forward to seeing most because of basically how we run these cars in iRacing versus how apparently they're running them in real life. I want to see how close his style translates to kind of what we do, because I think what we've learned is in the last race is the amount of speed that they carry into the corners, like we mentioned before, how aggressive they are with the cars, was a lot different from what we're experiencing. So obviously none of us have sat in an IndyCar, and Scott Dixon is a freak of nature, so I assume he's going to translate his skills in real life, the smoothness and all that, to iRacing pretty damn quick.
And so the warm-up period over now. So the cars lining up on the grid, so let's go ahead and take a look at your starting order. It's going to be Sage Cameron for the second week in a row out in front, but this time Will Power going to pit Felix Rosenquist for that second position. Felix Rosenquist is in third, and he's next to him will be Alex Palou. Then you've got Simon Pagenaud, Scott Speed, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, Oliver Askew, Graham Rahal will round out your top 10. Lots of Team Penske cars in that top 10. And further back, you've got Felipe Nasser, Colton Herta, Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, Kyle Kirkwood, Scott Dixon, Pato O'Ward, Jack Harvey, James Hinchcliffe, Dalton Kellett, Kyle Kaiser, Jimmy Johnson, Zach Veach, Santino Ferrucci, Tony Kanaan, Connor Daly, Ed Carpenter, Sebastian Bourdais, and Robert Wickens will be at the rear of your field as the pace truck does pull away. So a 29-car field here today, so going to be busy action around this short track.
Yeah, we know there's going to be a competition caution somewhere after it's like between lap 28 and lap 30. And we know that the fuel window for running the official series here, us running, it's like roughly 23, 24 laps is the most you can do on. So, oh wait, you just said lap 15 caution?
So maybe some new information being given out in the simulator right now. But the expected competition caution was between laps 29 and 31, so it would have been after the fuel window. Maybe some car is going to come in and play some strategy and try and make that work. Adam, what did they say over the radio?
It seems like Greg West was saying that there's going to be competition caution around lap 15, which would potentially open up, you know, some people pitting then for tires. And then, but the thing is, if you pit then, you're going to have to make another stop later anyway. It's just, you know, do you take track position and stay out and then have to pit, you know, 10 laps or so after the caution? Or do you pit and then maybe stretch it longer and do a short fill, maybe take no tires for the end of the race, or you just have to do maybe 5 laps extra. So Yeah, definitely some interesting strategy there.
And looking at the spotter stand, we have a lot of guys on the stands for each of these drivers, so it looks like they have some help in plotting out the best strategy for the race.
And I imagine either strategy could work. The main variable is going to be, traffic, because it's really tough to pass here. And if you get held up behind someone that's even just a few tenths of a lap slower with how close the field is, that could really cost you a lot.
So most of the drivers who showed good pace last time around are towards the front of your field. We obviously had that big incident between the Team Penske cars that took out all 4 of them basically early in that race and forcing them all to fight back. But all 4 Team Penske cars are in your top 10 for this one. It's going to be Sage Karam on the inside line who's going to take control of the field as they come around the second to last corner. There we go, Sage Karam taking them to the green flag. We already have an incident further back. That was a DHL powered car. I think that's Kyle
Kirkwood.
Someone's off of turn 1 also.
I think that's also Alexander Rossi.
Oh, Rossi's still going though.
Oh no, it was Jack Harvey in the pink car.
McLaughlin sideways and Charles Webb still going.
McLaughlin up.
Whoa, this action through the hairpin is tight. We had car just off track, but looks like they all got through it basically intact.
Some real carnage
Oh,
happening.
and Rossi's around in Museum Corner. He got turned, and now they're starting to pile in.
Nazar has big damage.
Lots of cars with heavy damage. Marcus Ericsson already in pit lane right now. I'm just looking at the incident count right here. Jack Harvey, Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, James Hinchcliffe, Jimmy Johnson, Ed Carpenter, Sebastian Bourdais, all cars involved in incidents. See Alexander Rossi going around the outside there of Santino Ferrucci. A bold move. Santino maybe having a little bit of right front damage there.
And that was Scott Dixon getting into the back of Alexander Rossi there.
Actually following along with Robert Wickens at the back, and he got 6 or 7 cars.
Another car currently sideways. That's in turn 2. Kyle Kaiser, Juncos Racing. That's Robert Wickens going around the outside. Lots of cars with heavy damage right now. Kyle Kirkwood and Dalton. Kyle Kirkwood is also in pit lane right now with Connor Daly. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what's been happening here. There's so much action. As who's that being slow further back in your field? Gray Rahal, who's now got left front damage, maybe coming down Museum Corner.
Top 4 cars are still very close together. They haven't gapped.
Rahal attempted a very tough move on Colton Herta going into turn 7A up there. He made the move, but he lost it under braking and then took a wild ride down Museum Corner.
We take a look at that replay. Very lucky not to slide back up into Colton Herta. So Graham Rahal now going to have some front wing damage and potentially some floor damage as well from that big drop.
And he already has a queue of cars behind him.
I would say that Rahal's probably going to stay out till that competition caution and just try to minimize damage right.
Pato Award already by Graham Rahal down through Charlotte's Web. Now Zach Beach and Dalton Kellett lining up behind him.
Pato Award, of course, not making very many friends last night. The open wheels 250, but so far seems to be staying out of trouble.
Who actually won that race last night, Andrew?
I did not stay to the end.
Oh, okay. I was watching at the beginning, and the funniest thing of that race was when I was watching Joseph Newgarden stream, and under caution he was trying to read his stream chat, and went down to pick something off of the floor as someone pulling down into pit lane. I think that's Graham Rahal. He's going to have to get that damage repaired. As he comes very
close. That's a bit surprising to me, to be honest.
He did come very close to hitting that pit wall on pit entry, but
it's a very tough pit entry here, very slick, and you have to go a lot slower than you think, but these guys have been practicing, so he was probably pushing to the max through.
Okay, so now that your field's starting to string out a little bit more, let's try and take a look at some of the carnage from the start of the race. You can see Kyle Kirkwood already sideways at the back of the field. And that's Jack Harvey getting together with Marcus Ericsson. Jack Harvey just clipping that inside curve. You can see Connor Daly running very wide, avoiding everybody there. And then Jack Harvey involved in a second incident. Maybe with that DHL-powered car.
Yeah, Jack did not have a good first lap, did he?
Unfortunately not. Then let's go look at the incident with Alex Rossi. Coming down into Museum Corner behind a gaggle of cars.
Yeah, it looks like Rossi checked up a little bit more than Dixon was thinking he was going to, and Dixon just got right in the back.
See if we can ride on board with Scott Dixon here. Coming down through the museum section, and you can see that checkup. Unfortunate, maybe a little bit of netcode there involved as well. Then we have more incidents happening, but let's take a look at the battle right now. Oliver Askew, he's fallen back in the field a little bit, but Scott Dixon in front of him, but Oliver did show some good pace last time out when he didn't have a damaged car, guys.
Dixon our 16th to 10th already.
And Arjuna, one thing that these incidents has produced with all the pit stops on the first couple of laps, Sage Karam is actually coming right up onto the back of Connor Daly and Kyle Kirkwood, and we're actually going to have lap traffic on about lap 5 here.
We ride on board with the nose of Sage Karam, your leader. He's got about 1.5 seconds to willpower behind him. The top 6 cars right now separated by less than 5 seconds, so even though Sage Karam's showing some good pace to run away out front, might not have it that easy with that competition caution. We saw how chaotic that restart was. Even though it'll be single file on that competition caution restart, it's still going to get fairly hectic, guys.
The other thing is, if you want to pit under that competition caution, as long as you can not go a lap down if you pit under green, it would be better to pit before the caution comes out. So that way, you know, you don't, because it's closed pits under caution, so you're going to go straight to the back of the queue if you pit under caution. And also, you'll jump, and if you pit before the caution, you'll jump anyone that pits under the caution.
Rossi's difficult day continues lap 5 through Charlotte's Web. He has another little minor spin, loses looks like 3 positions because of it though.
Alexander Rossi trying to pass Santino Ferrucci, unfortunately carrying a bit too much speed and able to get the car gathered up in time not to lose too much time.
Robert Wickens ran right through Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, Jimmy slowed way down for 7A there, and I don't think Robert was... Oh, I'm sorry, no, it was... they were trying to go too wide there. Jimmy should have given up that corner.
Robert Wickens getting a little bit too much of that inside curb. Let's try and ride on board with him if we can.
Wait, Jimmy's supposed to give up a corner where he's in front? Looked like a dive to me, like dive, there's not much of a braking zone there.
Either way, whoever is at fault for that incident, I don't think Robert Wickens is enjoying this return to racing too much right now. Going to have some significant aero struggles because of that damage on that front left of the wing. But moving back to your battle for second, Felix Rosenquist continuing to stay on the back of Willpower. We did see that Willpower last time out struggled a little bit with race consistency, but definitely had the one-lap pace. I think here right now, given that it's going to be tough to pass, even if he struggles to be consistent, it's going to take a big mistake from him for Felix Rosenquist to really make his way by.
Looks like Connor Daly and Kyle Kaiser have gone a lap down already.
I think Kyle Kaiser actually came back down pit lane. Pato Award. Slight spin, he's still going, so no damage to that car.
Yeah, he lost that really early. Managed to somehow keep it off the concrete there, but that's a puzzling one. He was, I think he must have just dropped a wheel off or something. I've never seen the car get that loose that early in that corner.
Jack Harvey in that pink car down onto pit lane right now. So I believe that's one more car that will be a lap down. I think only...
Not sure why he pitted now. gonna lose.
So with the competition caution on lap 15, we're going to have 7 laps to go until we get there. As we see Scott Dixon in this little bit of a battle pack here. Colton Herta in front of him, and Oliver Askew pressuring him from the rear. A little further out front.
We got another spin in museum. Or sorry, in turn 2.
Who is it?
Kyle Kirkwood just sort of parked there.
Okay, let's see if we can take a look at the replay. So Kyle
Almost
Kirkwood,
like he had a hardware failure or something, but he just parked in the middle of turn 2. Right in front of the leaders, too.
you can see Sage Karam coming by there. And Felix Rosenquist getting very close to hitting Kyle Kirkwood, who was stopped.
I'm not sure what Kyle Kirkwood was doing there, to be quite honest. He started right back up again. It's almost like he just decided to stop in the middle of the
Very bizarre what happened there. Maybe hardware failure, like Andrew pointed out. Scott Speed, who showed some good speed last time around. Unfortunately, having a small incident coming out of the exit of the boot and looping his car around while running in 4th. He's running in 5th here behind Alex Palou. He's got Joseph Newgarden pressuring him from behind.
So following up on Jack Harvey, he actually had a little incident with Sebastian Bourdais that gave him a good bit of damage. So that's why.
So, do you think that maybe the drivers are a little bit more comfortable with the set, and that's causing them to take a few more risks today? We've seen a lot more contact. This has been a much more physical race than Watkins Glen.
I mean, a little bit is the nature of the track too. Watkins Glen's a little bit more wide open, where here you've got to slow down a bit. It's a little bit more cramped. So.
Yeah, any pass here has to be confrontational.
And speaking of passing, I don't think Kyle Kirkwood making any friends right now. I think Scott Speed's got to be screaming at his spotter to get that DHL car out of his way.
Actually, fun fact in the back of the field here, after that incident,
Newgarden sending it. Oh, he just took out Speed.
So Scott Speed going to dive straight down onto pit road. Scott McLaughlin getting a little involved in that incident. Let's try and ride on board with Joseph Newgarden there.
It does look like there was a little bit of net code involved.
I think he was going to drive through him either way.
I think Adam is correct in that situation. A little bit of netco, but Joseph Newgarden carrying so much speed there. So Scott Speed, unfortunately, for the 2nd week in a row, not going to finish and show the pace that he really does have. So unfortunate for Scott, who's driving in the place of Marco Andretti here.
The only good news is he is going to have the competition caution.
In defense of Joseph, the way that the cars reacted there, I'm wondering if Scott was blinking in and out for Joseph, because it didn't seem like the cars were reacting even under a normal netcode situation. Like, Joseph basically went through Speed there.
Yeah, it didn't look like he was making a pass or any sort of breaking the speed was good. He just ended up in the middle of Scott Speed's step.
You do make fair points, so maybe some damage there. And Scott Speed seems to still be on the lead lap, having left pit lane right now.
Well, and curiously, there doesn't seem to be any damage on the front of Joseph Newgarden's car either.
But to be fair, I think something that we've all experienced in the IR18 is that the person who takes who instigates the contact with the front of their car typically gets less damage than the person who receives the damage to their rear of their car. So maybe that also has a little bit of an impact there.
No, but if you normally if you drive through someone like that, you would get front wing damage from that. If not front suspension damage, based on how they hit, or supposedly.
Wow, so Alex Rossi now down onto pit lane, so another car not having the cleanest of races. And with Alex Rossi still on pit lane as Sage Karam comes around to complete lap 13. That does mean that 7 cars, I believe, now 1 lap down. We might end up Jimmy Johnson only about 10 seconds in front of Sage Karam right now. We may end up with a few more cars a lap down before we even get to the competition caution.
Yeah, Rossi had a fairly big crash going over the crest near the end of the lap. Fortunately, he was right near pit end, so he could go immediately in the pits.
Let's see if we can go and take a look at that. Coming through the roller coaster section, and yeah, you can see that heavy front impact there. That's going to be probably race over, but these cars do have, I believe, 2 fast repairs. Oh, and you see him unfortunately making contact with Santino Ferrucci as well there. Alex Rossi is back out on track though, so did use that fast repair.
Yeah, and right now Jimmy Johnson and Sebastian Bourdais are desperately trying to hold on to the lead lap until we get the car.
Yeah, we got, what, 2 laps to the caution at this point? So,
And
I think
Jimmy's like 3.5 seconds off pace.
And sorry to interrupt guys, but Scott McLaughlin coming down pit lane, so some pit strategy here from one of your players out front. Maybe he's going to use this to jump to the front at the end of the...
I think this is a brilliant move because that means that if people come down pit lane under the competition caution, he's going to be able to stay out and go past them. I think this is some brilliant strategy from Team Pet.
Zach Beach also following him down.
I only like it if a lot of people pit under caution. If everybody stays out, then the problem is anytime he's going to gain filling on the shorter fill time later, he might lose just through the fact that he's going to be caught like in field spread when we restart. He could lose like 10, 15 seconds just from field spread.
Well, but if people don't come in front of him, then they're still like everyone's going to have to make one more pit stop anyways.
Right, but then if he goes from 6th to 19th or something on the restart, that's like he's going to probably lose more time than he gains from short.
Well, he's in what is it, 15th right now, so he shouldn't lose too much time. I think that this is a great move.
So as we start lap 15, Sage Karen's still out there. There's some battling happening a little further back though. You have Santino Ferrucci and that Seal Master Dale Coyne racing with Vassar Sullivan car. That's a mouthful. You can see battle scars in all 3 of these cars. Felipe Nasser from Carlin behind him and Graham Rahal as Santino Ferrucci taking to the grass there in the air. These guys are fighting tooth and nail even back in the field back here, guys.
And what is the situation for fast repairs?
Caution, yellow flag.
Yeah,
2 fast repairs as we get the competition caution.
So your leader, Sage Karam, coming around towards that pit lane entry. He's not going to be able to dive down this time around, though.
Is there a car? There's a car on pit lane right now.
Scott Speed, I believe.
Scott Speed. So he entered the pits before the caution. I think he might be a great benefactor here, too.
I think Scott trying to make the strategy work after having to come down anyway. Scott!
Oh!
Oh!
That was
Maybe he
not
just lost a lap. He might have just lost a lap doing that.
He may have just cost himself the strategy that I was just about to praise him for after having that incident and having to come down to repair, maybe coming just back down to fill up the tank and see how long he can go, but I think he did lose his lap there. Oh, no, he seems to be retaking his...
passing.
Okay, no.
I'm wondering if iRacing is going to be sending these guys around, race control, sending these guys around to make sure that they aren't caught a lap.
That was very lucky that Scott Speed didn't get caught a lap down by that maneuver coming out of pit lane.
Yeah.
So your field is neutralized right now. Your top 3, Sage Karam from Willpower and Felix Rosenquist. And then Alex Palteau, apparently, is the correct way to pronounce it. I was told in YouTube chat, guys, so just FYI. Hello.
So Scott Speed is clutching around this pace lap trying to catch the field. That tells me he might... no way he's going to try to make it from the end of this caution to the end of the race.
So hypothetically, we have maybe 2 more laps under caution here. That would still mean that he's got to do 28 laps on a fuel tank, I would say. I think that might be stretching it a little bit too far.
I mean, worst case, maybe, any fuel he saves here is less he puts in the tank at the end, and then he just goes all the way or whatever and just adds fuel and no tire.
He's got to catch up to the pace car quickly, or else he's gonna negate his strategy. These
He'll
guys are
catch up.
coming up to pit road now, and he's just in Charlotte's Web.
So we'll pull up a track map so you can see Scott Speed trying to catch the rear of the field now.
I mean, I don't think anyone will pit under the yellow now unless you're at the back, like maybe Jimmy Johnson.
I think if you're probably 10th or worse, you should be coming into pit.
I think the only way you pit is if you have damage or if you're at the very back.
So Connor Daly is coming down pit lane, but he's already a lap down. Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Robert Wickens, Felipe Nasser, I think all takers down to pit lane. So more cars at the rear of your field are taking this time to come down pit lane. So I forget which one of you guys said top 10. At the rear of the top 10 they would come down, but yeah, so here we go. That was
Andrew.
Andrew with a little bit of a psychic insight there.
He's a bit of a strategy whisperer, so.
You can see some of these.
He gets it wrong most of the time.
Oh, do I?
He got me a second place at Phoenix at the Lionheart this week, so. Also aided by the fact that he took out Stover in front of me. No small.
So, as we come down.
Hang on, we're not going green. Not going green.
So as you guys can rather loudly hear in my ear, we are not going green this time around. So Scott Dixon is going to be the first car with completely fresh tires. Scott Speed did get out in front of him though. I think the cars in front of Scott Dixon is Connor Daly, who will fall to the rear of the field as a lapped car, I believe.
No, the lap cars start in their position unless it's less than 10.
All right, so there we go. So, gonna have some lapped cars intermingled here throughout the field.
I also feel like Connor Daly probably, I don't know if he has a live stream or not, but probably has a solid mixed drink right beside him during this, so if he is, check that out to see if he's indulging in some beverages right now.
And we do not condone drinking and driving even in the virtual world. We just want to be clear there. But lights not out on the pace car just yet. I think we're gonna have at least one more caution lap here.
Yeah, that's what the not going green was about.
I'm not sure why. I guess this is just for TV now. So I mean, maybe we need to play a commercial.
This is a commercial break on NBC.
All right. So what do we want to plug here, guys? Brian, why don't you go first? I know you have a website. Why don't you plug that?
I think Brian took his own little break here.
Hello?
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 Oh, hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. Anyways, the my horrendously outdated website, therevlimit.com. You can visit that. There should be some updates coming shortly because what else am I going to do? I don't have to go anywhere anymore.
Just to interrupt, guys, Scott Dixon coming back down pit lane, so maybe he's one of the drivers who is going to try and make the strategy work. And try and extend it.
That would not be surprising.
But we're going to come around, I think, to lap 19 to start this race, so I mean, it's not out of the question for maybe someone like Scott to try and extend it.
Scott Dixon fuel saving? That's never happened before, has it?
Right.
Can I just point out that the yaw angle that the pace truck takes around these corners is really
This is why we can't have nice things, Adam.
Also, how in the Open Series race that we ran this past week, how long were we able to go on a tank?
I was able to go 25 without saving.
Okay, yeah, that was about, because we did 38 laps for our race, full tank. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's about the same.
Yeah, I think Dixon can make it. It'll just be whether or not he can make it close enough to the leaders that it'll actually help him.
Yeah.
And so
Pace truck was actually scrubbing through the Charlotte's Web.
So Scott's
The
going to be...
biggest... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Scott's going to be all the way down in 22nd, though. So that might be the biggest hindrance he has here, just the number of cars in between him and the leaders. That's going to maybe just move him towards the back as the laps unwind here.
One thing to note is, I mean, he doesn't. I mean, they're going to go green roughly, you know, lap 19, so that's only 26 under green, and he has the one caution lap. So that's not going to be. I mean, he has to save, but depends on what his normal number is. He doesn't have to save a ton.
I feel like Scott Dixon sweats fuel that just goes directly into the tank.
Yeah. The big thing will be making sure that he gets through these next few laps cleanly and is able to pass some of the guys like Jimmy Johnson, Ed Carpenter, Santino Ferrucci. Can he actually get by them quick enough to stay in contact with the leaders, or will it be closer to a 30 or 40 second gap by the time he gets up and sort of on his own again?
I don't really think he has a shot at the win just because of his pace, but he definitely has a shot of a really strong top 10.
So pace truck pulls away, and Sage Karam's going to take us back to green flag racing here. And now expect these drivers to come back down onto pit lane who have not pitted, rather. Maybe in 8 or 9 laps. The stint getting extended by that caution run. There's Felix Rosenquist. I think that's Alex Hallow, who looked to the inside of Felix Rosenquist there for a second, but no dice.
Rossi.
Oh, we have, was that Dixon?
Rosenquist making the move on power.
Dixon spun in turn 1, guys. Dixon spun in turn 1.
So Dixon's currently spun, but Felix Rosenquist going wheel to wheel with Will Power as they dive their way through the museum section. And so you are correct, that is Alex Rossi, who as a lap car currently getting in the way a little bit of Alex Palou. This battle for second right now, really going to be hot. This is going to be your main opportunity, I think, for Felix to really try and get the move done. Unless he wants to try and affect something under pit lane. So Felipe Nasser is in pit lane. He did crash. Let's go ahead and take a look at that incident.
Yeah, so it was Felipe Nasser and it looked like Santino Ferrucci both losing it on through turn 1 on the restart. And then further back, Sebastian Bourdais and Scott Dixon got together. Dixon got the worst of it.
You can see Felipe Nasser looking to the inside of Robert Wickens. Unfortunately taking too much curb, losing the rear end of the car, and Santino Ferrucci making a little bit of contact there.
Oh, and we got a McLaren around him, it looks like. Or was that, sorry, was that a McLaren or was that I'm sorry, that was Zach Veach. Zach Veach was around in the final complex back on that lap as well.
So lots of action on these restarts. Your battle for second still a close one, with Will Power being chased and harangued by Felix Rosenquist behind him. Alex Palou has fallen a little bit further behind here now because of this traffic situation with Alex Rossi being in front of him. Some of these drivers a lap down, not making friends, I think, with some of their other drivers. Maybe going to be interesting when we eventually get back to real racing if some of these grudges hold over. As Tony Kanaan is not enjoying it right now. He's currently, I think, had a few spins since we restarted. You can see the damage on his car already on that front wing.
Yeah, he overcooked it into turn 5 and nearly took out Jack Harvey, and then getting pointed back in the right direction, he lit up the tires and did a little half spin again. So he lost. He was up till about 12th, I believe, and he lost all of the progress that he had made.
Rossi did not make it easy for Palou. Palou had to use push and pass in the museum.
Scott McLaughlin, though, back in 9th, he's sandwiched here by these two spam Arrow McLaren drivers. Having a little bit of connection issues with him, though.
One thing that we can see now that iRacing updated push to pass stuff is that now as spectators you can see the amount of push to pass. So we can see that Sage has all of his remaining. And
we got
Rossi.
Oh, we got a big incident here. Joseph Newgarden coming down onto pit entry. Alex Rossi also coming down, but unfortunately Alex too slow, and Joseph getting into his second incident of the day so far.
But the fortunate thing for them is they do have the fast repairs, and it was on the entrance to pit lane, as we also have one of the McLarens coming down as well. I believe that's Oliver Askew following them down. So Newgarden should be able to take a fast repair here and get going quickly again.
some of the drivers who did not pit under that competition caution, playing slightly different fuel strategy. Sage Karam still out front from Will Power. Felix Rosenquist has fallen a little bit off Will Power, so maybe a small mistake at some point.
He made a
And
mistake
guys,
at the last.
even with that spin, Scott Dixon did get out in front of Joseph Newgarden by about 10 seconds. So I wouldn't count Dixon out of the win just yet.
Also, just looking at that, it was not Newgarden getting back to Rossi. It was Rossi losing it in the pit lane in front of him.
Yep.
Will Power coming down pit lane. He also making a little bit of contact with the wall there. Hopefully not too much damage. So maybe Joseph Newgarden falling behind Scott Dixon because of some repairs on pit lane. But it doesn't appear.
I think Power's trying to undercut Karam, but really they need to stay out to make sure that they get out in front of Dixon, I think.
We do follow Sage Karam. You see Will Power, James Hinchcliffe, Zach Veach, and Alex Rossi all on pit lane. Santino Ferrucci, Sebastian Bourdais also coming down now.
And so Dixon's out in front of Power.
So Dixon's 1 second in front of Power. Jimmy Johnson, unfortunately, has crashed right now, but we're going to follow Sage Karam. Is he going to come down onto pit lane this time?
So this could be disastrous for Power, especially if Dixon holds him up a little bit. Power really needs to put down some scorching laps in order to see if he can get by Rosenquist and Karam here.
I expect Sage just to stretch it out as long as he can and use some of the push to pass he's saved up to try to make sure he comes out in front of Dixon.
And so Will Power, we ride on board. Currently behind Scott Dixon and Robert Wickens in front of them. Had to award on pit lane right now, so many of these cars coming down, but Sage Karam, Felix Rosenquist, Alex Palou, and Simon Pagenaud and Colton Herder, your first 5 cars who have not pitted. Then Scott McLaughlin is the best of the cars who have pitted, but he pitted on lap 14, so unlikely that he's going to be able to get to the end of the race from there, but maybe the Team Penske masterminds have something in mind.
Keep in mind that McLaughlin, if he does come down pit road, will only have to take a splash and dash. So maybe they're hoping that he can keep a high enough gap to the rest of them that he'll actually be able to come out ahead on this whole exchange, especially with all the traffic that the guys who are pitting will have to deal with.
So Ed Carpenter now down onto pit lane, returning to the road course action for the first time in a while, but Sage Karam still staying out. Adam, how many more laps do you think that Sage can really do from here now?
He has probably pit into this lap or into next lap. He did save some fuel under caution, you know, so maybe he can go a little bit. I'd expect him to have to pit pretty soon.
He is coming up right behind Sebastian, so if he was planning on coming down pit lane, he might get a little bit blocked by Sebastian here.
So Scott McLaughlin will take over the race lead once the 4 cars in front of him have come down pit lane.
And Bourdais is not letting him by. So this could be the break that Power needs.
Well, Power's still stuck behind Dixon.
Power's still stuck behind Dixon, but Sage Karam being held up by Sebastian Bourdais. This is not a situation that Sebastian will be familiar. As we saw a car sideways there, I think that was on the exit of Charlotte's Web. Sebastian Bourdais continuing to hold up Sage Karam here, though. And Sage does.
Karam's in.
Like Power's last lap was almost a second slower than Karam Rosenquist. So.
Yes, but at the same time, Bourdais is lapping about 3 or 4 seconds a lap slower.
So Felix Rosenquist will inherit the race lead now, and then maybe he will come down the next time around once he catches onto the back of Sebastian Bourdais. Felix Rosenquist with the fastest lap of the race with a 1:06.72 that last time around. Sage Karam, his best lap, 1:06.84, so Felix Rosenquist may be using some push to passes there to really start to work on that gap. So where is Sage Karam going to come out? There's Kyle Kirkwood, one of the lap cars.
And he is going to come out about 2 seconds in front of Dixon and Power.
Scott Dixon potentially in second place after the pit strategy works out. He's not that far behind Sage Karam, and Felix Rosenquist going to have to come down pit lane. It's a tricky pit entrance here, so potential to lose time. But Sage Karam, after having lost time behind Sebastian Bourdais, now losing time behind Kyle Kirkwood. This lap traffic really not playing out nicely for Sage right now.
And Willpower has to be frustrated. He's already used 3 push to pass trying to get around Dixon, and it hasn't.
I think Sage Karam just moved Kyle Kirkwood out of the way there as they came down through the museum corner. You could see
He just like willed him to poop himself there.
I'd say a little bit of the chrome horn was going on there.
There was a little bit of clipping as we ran on board the nose of Sage Karam, so maybe a little bit of a get out of my way message was being sent there, but Sage Karam, as Felix Rosenquist and Simon Pagano are on pit lane.
I think Rosenquist is going to get the lead here. I think he's going to do it.
It's going to be
It's
close.
going to be close.
He does
And
it.
he slams the door.
Wow, Felix Rosenquist able to make pit strategy work for the driver from Chip Ganassi. He's now going to have cold tires though.
Sage is going to be chucking it up the outside here into Charlotte's Web. Is he going to be able to pull off the outside pass?
Felix Rosenquist closing the door and forcing Sage.
Oh, Sage is in the grass. This could end in tragedy.
Oh no!
Yes, he does.
And Scott Dixon and Will Power are going to come through here.
Here's Scott Dixon a little further back. I think something happened to Scott Dixon.
Something happened to Dixon.
Will Power is in front of Felix Rosenquist. You can see Sage, I think he's bouncing off the grass there. So big drama out front, and maybe the person who this benefits.
Sage has damage now.
Sage is in the lead though, or he's going to be in the net lead.
But maybe the person who this benefits the most, as Sage Karam coming down pit lane, Scott McLaughlin, I think your big winner here, guys. Out front, clean car, clean track right now. And his nearest competition, 27 seconds behind him, that is a pit window there. So even if he needed to come down for a full tank of fuel, Scott McLaughlin, I think, has the lead of this race. Let's go ahead and try and take a look.
Oh, and Rosenquist is around.
Yeah, Rosenquist and Sage's race are basically both done. I mean, they're out of the...
So let's take a look
Yeah.
at
Just like to point out that Robert Wickens is in 4th place right now. Still has to pit, but came from 28th position.
Well, I believe he pitted on that competition caution, so he is another driver who's just going to have to do a short.
He did. He pitted last on lap 16. So Graham Rahal down on pit lane, though. So now your top 3, Scott McLaughlin, Scott Speed, and Robert Wickens. So 2 very new names to an IndyCar podium, I would say. But I think Scott McLaughlin, guys, really does have this race in control. So Scott Speed on a similar pit strategy to Scott McLaughlin, but 16 seconds behind.
But by the same token, Will Power is now in clean air with no one around him, so he might be able to rattle off some fast laps and reel in Scott McLaughlin. McLaughlin is going to have to keep the pedal to the metal here and really hope that he can build up a big enough gap on Power that he can still come out ahead.
Giving it some jandle, if you will.
We are going to try and ride with this incident for the race lead. Sage Karam getting very tightly squeezed by Felix Rosenquist, and then Felix Rosenquist unfortunately missing the corner a little bit. And I think that's just a racing incident, 2 drivers being very aggressive for the lead of a race, and unfortunately contact does ensue.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them was going to give, like, Sage probably didn't have to drive on the grass in the straight, but then also obviously Rosenquist missed the corner.
And you can see the reason Sage going very wide there was right front damage to his front wing, and in the process of going off the track and getting some airtime, getting damage to the left-hand part of the wing as well. So Sage Karam now back in 16th place. He's 50 seconds behind the leader. So Sage Karam definitely one of the fastest guys in the field here. Let's see how he's going to recover in the rest of this race.
But guys, 2 drivers who've really benefited from this, Alex Palou and Simon Pagano, are within 3 and 4 seconds of Will Power. So they are within striking distance, and both have been running extremely clean races. They haven't been in any of the battles that we've seen, and we barely talked about them, but they're in position to potentially capitalize on this as well.
So Power and McLaughlin are doing almost the same lap time, so it's just a question of how big the pit delta is going to be, and who catches traffic, and maybe if someone gets held up.
We do have 16 laps to go. We did take a look at that replay with Scott Dixon and Will Power. So Scott Dixon getting turned by Will Power, unfortunately, as they came through Charlotte's Web. So some drama all happening on one lap. So So Scott Dixon, Will Power getting together. Then you had Felix Rosenqvist and Sage Karam getting together for the lead of your race. It all nets out. Scott McLaughlin, driver from New Zealand, has not actually ever really raced this car before. He's done a significant amount of testing, but he is out front.
But crucially, he is an experienced iRacer. So he knows how to handle cars on iRacing, knows what to expect, and I think that experience is paying dividends for him in this race here.
He also has 9 push-to-pass saved up, and Will Power only has 2 laps.
Will Power losing about 4/10 that last lap.
He's off at Charlotte's Web.
I believe that's Jack Harvey who was off at Charlotte's Web, but right now we ride. There's diving further back. Pato Ward making a move down the inside of Colton Herta. That was a very aggressive pass. Seems to have got it done cleanly. As further up the field, Felix Rosenqvist getting by Scott Dixon on the inside towards Museum Corner.
Team orders.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of team strategy. Felix and Scott would have known that he has to save a little bit of fuel here to make this work. And Felix, being the faster guy, I think that was a lot of teamwork from the two Chip Ganassi drivers.
We ever see why Dixon fell back from
Oh,
Power?
and Karam has disconnected.
He has.
So
He is out.
So Scott McLaughlin also coming out of pit lane right now. He's come out in front of Will Power. So Scott McLaughlin, he's now got to chase down Robert Wickens in front of him. The other driver who might be able to extend to the end of the race, but it's unlikely. So as Sage Karam disconnects from...
Oh, so Tony Kanaan, it looks like, was that Tony Kanaan? Yeah, lost it at the top of the roller coaster, at the top of the hill there, and Karam was left with nowhere to go as Tony pulled back on track. This was lap 30 for Tony Kanaan.
So as we see Marcus Ericsson off in the background, there's been a lot of carnage in this race, but right now the battle for your lead, I believe, is going to be here between Scott McLaughlin and Will Power. So 2 Team Penske drivers battling it out for the race win here.
Wickens almost lost it there, and he gets passed by McLaughlin and Power.
Maybe this actually benefits Robert in some way. He's already looking at potentially a fuel-saving race here. If he lets Alex Palou and Simon Pagenaud through, there's a little bit of a gap to Felix Rosenqvist, who is on a charge, but I think he'll be very happy with 6th position, given this is his return to racing. He goes wide into turn 1, able to collect it, but his return to racing, his first iRace, I have to assume, and given the trouble at the start, 6th place, not a terrible finish.
Just riding on board with him, he's definitely trying to save fuel.
We just got turned by Alex.
Yeah, Palou turns Wickens. Looks like there's some rear damage to Wickens, but that might put paid to the 6th place.
That is definitely... Exactly, that is definitely a commentator's curse, and Alex Palou, unfortunately, he had a very interesting race last time out, showing good pace until having to come down pit lane twice in 2 laps, but now he's got a little bit of front right damage on that front wing, and that's going to hurt him for the remainder of this race.
Basically use Wickens as a brake there.
Yeah, well, I think that Wickens was fuel saving a lot more than Palou thought he would be, and by the time he realized there was no avoiding. But this puts Palou in breathing range of Simon Pagenaud, so we might get a Penske 1-2-3 here.
And so Scott Speed, your leader out front, he was almost 2 seconds slower than Scott McLaughlin that last time around. Maybe Scott Speed, who pitted 2 laps before even Robert Wickens, trying to make this stint almost a 31-lap stint, even including those caution laps.
There's no way. There's no way that they can make that.
Yeah, they can. There's a huge train with Herta, Award, and Askew right now for 8th.
We'll go and take a look. That Colton Herta got past Pato Award, so no longer in a McLaren sandwich. We take a look at some of your biggest gainers and losers here. Robert Wickens up 18th places even in 11th, so not a bad day for him at all. Then Sage Karam, your pole sitter, is out of this race. He is not going to take home a 2nd consecutive win here, so not good for him at all, as we see Colton Herta taking a lot of that inside curve through the roller coaster and getting a little bit unsettled. You can see the 2 McLaren drivers lining up behind him.
Will Power's chat has been disabled.
clearly Will Power chatting, making some comments here maybe to some lap traffic because he has lost the rear of Scott McLaughlin by quite a bit here. Maybe Scott showing his pace here.
Yeah, McLaughlin is no slouch in this car. He doesn't have Will's one lap pace in qualifying, but in the race, I would put McLaughlin up against Power any day.
The gap between Scott Speed and Scott McLaughlin, 2 Scotts out front, going to drop below 4 seconds here. You can hear Scott McLaughlin having to lift a little bit moving through those S's. And the commitment coming over the roller coaster here. Someone usually, normally driving a supercar, very, very cool to see how well he has adapted to high downforce cars. So 10 laps to go, guys. Who is your favorite to win the race? Let's start with Brian.
You know what? I am rooting for Scotty McLaughlin right now. It looks like he's going pretty good. He's holding the gap at Will, so I'm gonna stick with him. I was actually. Do you remember who I picked at the beginning? I honestly forget. Oh, Newgarden. Yeah, no, that's it.
The 2 McLaren teammates not playing nice with each other. O'Ward just blocked Askew to the pit wall in the front straight.
So I'm guessing you're not
Classic
picking
McLaren.
them. You're not picking them, Adam. But who would you pick?
I mean, right now I think it's obvious that McLaughlin's got the advantage. I mean, he's got fresher tires and more push to pass left.
So how many push to passes does he still have left?
Hang on. So Power has 2, and McLaughlin has 9.
So maybe Scott McLaughlin's best lap so far, a 107.08. I believe Felix Rosenquist still has the best lap here, a 106.72. So Scott McLaughlin, he's only used 1 of his push to passes here. let's see maybe if he's going to go out and set a fastest lap at the end of this race. That's typically what people do once they accumulate the push to passes at the end of the race.
The main variable here is if they catch Scott Speed and Scott McLaughlin gets held up, that could be an opportunity for Will Power.
Well, McLaughlin's actually in traffic right now. He's got Hinch just letting him by, but then he's got Rossi and Speed in front of him.
And guys,
so this isn't going to be a walk in the park.
Scott Speed is lifting a lot. He looks like he's trying to make it on fuel.
Let's ride on board with Scott and see if we can hear just how much he lifts as they go towards the roller coaster section. It would be amazing to hear, to see him go all the way to green, to the end of the race. You can hear him lifting a good 200 meters earlier going through the roller coaster, and that does explain why he is so much slower than the drivers behind. That gap now 2.5 seconds.
And even though he's slower, he's not a lot. He's only a second slower. I mean, it's going to be still tough to pass him when they, judging by how hard it's been for these guys to pass lap traffic. So.
Yeah, Power got held up a little bit by James Hinchcliffe through the final section. But it doesn't look like Rossi is getting... Oh, now he is finally getting out of McLaughlin's way.
So Scott McLaughlin now, clear view of Scott Speed's rear bumper. Now someone I think in the YouTube chat had said that Scott Speed leading this race, but guys, we worked with him last week at Watkins Glen. He's obviously got Formula One experience, but Scott Speed definitely not a slouch in this car.
No, he is not a slouch. He knows what he's doing. And he is another veteran iRacer with a little bit of infamy obviously attached with a little bit of controversy last year, but he obviously knows his way around the simulation and knows that if he thinks that he can make it, maybe he can. Maybe the caution laps were enough, but I'll be shocked if he can make it.
And maybe even if he ends up losing a couple spots here, I mean, I still think if he makes it, he's going to finish in the top 5. So it'll work out as long as he can hit the field.
Well, whatever he's doing, he's going to give us a hell of a finish.
And so you say top 5, but I mean, Alex Hallow and Simon Pagenaud scrapping away for 4th and 5th. They're 9 seconds behind Scott right now. We've got 6 laps to go, or 7 laps to go. It could be close coming towards the end of this race. You can hear just how much he's lifting and how close Scott McLaughlin is getting now. That gap below 1 second as they exit Charlotte's Web.
And Scott Speed only has 2 push to pass left, so he doesn't have fuel and he doesn't have push to pass to defend with.
Well, if you're saving fuel, you're not going to want to burn extra fuel by using push to passes, I think, but...
Well,
But then again, this is a track where push to pass is a little bit less effective. You don't really have the ability to get as much of a run as you do at some other places. So I think that Scott, I don't know how much Scott will be able to defend, but I'm sure he won't give this up easily.
Keeping in mind too, the way this is going down, that if Scott and Scott's get together or get kind of held up at all, Will's going to be right in the catbird seat, ready to...
I mean, Will's already almost on the back of McLaughlin's.
And you could see Scott
and McLaughlin nearly moves Speed, and Speed actually gets out of the way of both of them. I think he is trying to make...
I think Scott Speed, the smart move, but you could see a McLaren weaving there. I think that was Pato O'Ward.
Yeah, that was Pato O'Ward. I'm not sure what happened to him. I'll have to go back and...
See if we can quickly take a look here.
Oh, so O'Ward just came out of the pits, actually. He had to make another pit stop.
And he lost
he was going through turn 1, just got back on the throttle with the new tires, and it looped it, and he hit the wall.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time I did that at practice here at Harvard, I'd probably have well over $1.
And once he hit the wall, terminal damage for that car, not much he could really do. But let's move back to that battle out front.
Looks like these guys are gonna have clean track for a while. The next cars are in turn 1, turn 2 right now.
The Shell V-Power Team Penske. Scott McLaughlin battling with the Verizon Team Penske car of Power. It's a 1-2 for Team Penske right now. Let's see how hard they do fight. Scott Dixon has come down pit lane, by the way, from 8th place.
If Dixon's pitting, that's not good for Scott Speed.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Scott Speed now almost 4 seconds behind this battle out front. He's going to fall into clutches.
Thoughts in this race.
And Scott Speed's last lap was a 1:10.8.
But keep in mind, Adam, he did run very wide in turn 1, giving up a significant amount of time to let these 2 leaders out front get by cleanly. So let's see what his lap time is this time around, and maybe it'll be a bit more representative.
And Simon Pagenaud is now on the back of Alex Palou.
So Alex Palou having to deal with a little bit of right front wing damage, so that will be compromising his ability to push that car. And so Simon Pagenaud, both of these guys qualifying in 4th and 5th respectively. Simon Pagenaud looking to take a place away here. Also Sebastian Bourdais fighting with Jimmy Johnson and Graham Rahal further back in your field though. Those are the last cars on a lead lap.
Did anyone pick McLaughlin? Okay.
I don't believe so. I think I had Rosenquist.
I had Power, so.
Who did I pick?
You picked Karam.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think at least, Adam, you got a Team Penske car, so that's close enough. And so, I guess so did Brian by association.
Yeah, if you just like kind of put the numbers together and kind of patch together the paint scheme, then there we go. We got it right. Hopefully, 1 time left.
So I wish I could go side by side here, because the battle out front, obviously a close one, but Scott McLaughlin is pulling away just a little bit right now. He's got those push to passes to use, but Alex Palou really getting pressured by Simon Pagenaud.
I think that the tires are starting to come into play a little bit for Will Power.
Scott Dixon.
Simon Pagenaud, I think.
Sorry, Scott Dixon is around. Coming through turn 1 and 2, we have another spin. And it's interesting, guys, a lot of the corners where we've been seeing these cars struggling, potentially corners where you get more feeling through the seat rather than through the steering.
Yeah, I think these drivers are definitely missing having that feeling. It does translate a little bit through your force feedback, but if you're not used to looking for it, it's hard to detect. So I think that they are definitely missing having that sort of butt feel that you get from being in a real car.
So Oliver Askew with no front nose in 9th place. Robert Wickens taking away a spot down the inside into turn 1. And so Oliver Askew going to slip behind Dalton Kellett as well, and maybe Santino Ferrucci a further 10 seconds back with 3 laps to go, able to get a place here.
And Dalton Kellett's just run a really steady, clean race, and he's up to 20th. So
Wickens' car has been through the wars here, and they're going side by side through 7A.
yeah, Askew's just a set duck with no front wing.
So here comes Dalton Kellett. He's going to think better. You talked about him being smart, and maybe that's what he's doing here, Adam. He knows that he's got 2 laps to make the pass, and with no front wing, he's going to get it eventually.
I didn't say smart, I just said clean.
But back up front, we got Will Power is still with Scott McLaughlin. He hasn't used the push to passes yet, and we are on lap 44. So it does look like he's saving those 2 push to passes for that very final one. And we do have some traffic coming up as well, guys.
So we do ride on board with Scott McLaughlin. You could see the push to pass icon on his dashboard indicating he was on the push to pass there. He's got 3 left. So somewhere in the last few laps he's used 6 of them as they come to take the white flag. I don't know who that is in front of them. But
Dixon.
That's Scott Dixon. Scott McLaughlin's going to be waving him out of the way here. Will Power
2 Kiwis.
So fellow countryman does stick out of the way there.
And he hurts Will Power on the exit of that corner.
You can see
Yeah,
Scott
that cost
McLaughlin,
Power at least a couple tenths.
Scott McLaughlin using one of those push to passes here. He'll use another one potentially coming out of Museum Corner. No, he uses a second one here, and he's going to use a third one coming out of Museum Corner. So Scott McLaughlin, I
Will
think
Power's got 1 left as well.
I think Scott McLaughlin has this under control. Battles further back, though. There's traffic that stays out of the way for Alex Palou and Simon Pagenaud. I don't think Simon Pagenaud hasn't been able to effect a pass yet. I don't think he's going to be able to get it on the white flag here. However, your leader, the Kiwi, Scott McLaughlin, will come around the second to last corner to see the checkered flag for the first time in his IndyCar career and take his first ever IndyCar win in the iRacing IndyCar Challenge. Right behind him, Will Power.
Nice drive from McLaughlin.
And Dalton Kellett had an incident on the second to last lap, but he lost himself time.
And Palou is drag racing with Scott Speed, but Speed did in fact make it.
That was almost a 2-wide battle there. Simon Pagenaud and Felix Rosenquist coming on across the line, but Simon Pagenaud does hold on to 5th position there.
That was actually quite a battle between 3rd through 6th there.
Dalton Kellett loses a few positions, as Andrew was mentioning. Colton Herta is going to come across the line in 7th. Then you got Robert Wickens, Joseph Newgarden. As I think that's Dalton. No, that wasn't Dalton Kellett. That was the Juncos racing car of Kyle Kaiser, who had an incident at the last corner.
And what a drive from Wickens. Yes, his car got battered and beaten, but it was mostly not his fault. And quite the accomplishment to see Robert come back and take the wheel of his hand-controlled sim and be racing with these guys and acquitting himself so.
Santino Ferrucci deliberately rammed into Kyle Kirkwood after the checkered flag.
So I did mention it a few times earlier in the race, but some of these drivers I don't think making many friends with their on-track behavior. As we see Scott McLaughlin doing some donuts to celebrate this inaugural race victory. And Alex Rossi, I'm not sure why he's really tried to do donuts, but I think that's more of a crash than anything. Guys, what reflections do you guys have on the race before we look at the race results?
I just think that was a super entertaining race. Like, I was thoroughly enjoyed by that. There was a lot of action there. I enjoyed it a lot more than Watkins. I like the track a lot more than Watkins, but as a personal matter and an IndyCar fan, Canadian, I was really rooting for Robert to do well here. This is his first time in any sort of competition since his accident. And he was 45 seconds behind. And like Andrew said, he had a few incidents, but he went from 29th to 8th today. And that was awesome. It makes me very happy.
What about you, Adam? Any reflections or any drivers that really stood out to you?
Well, I think Felix Rosenquist and Sage Karam kind of threw the race away. But that made for a really entertaining battle. I think the competition caution was really interesting strategy-wise. I think, like I said, I think Karam and Rosenquist still would have had the win if they hadn't messed each other up. But yeah, in the end, McLaughlin was able to make the strategy work and edge out Power.
And last but not least, Andrew.
Yeah, I think it was just a very veteran type of drive from Scott McLaughlin. And even though he's a rookie to IndyCar, he's clearly not a rookie to racing. And he played that strategy perfectly and is a deserving winner, was able to hold off power despite some immense pressure. And then I'd like to echo Brian. I'm just tickled pink to see Robert Wickens out on a track again and doing so well. The other guy that I think we should give a shout out to is Colton Herta. He had a really tough time at Watkins Glen, but we didn't really talk about it most of the race, but he had a really solid drive as well, going from 12th to 7th.
So we'll go ahead and look at your final race results then. So two Team Penske cars out front, Scott McLaughlin and Will Power, separated by less than half a second. Then Scott Speed with an impressive showing to save a ton of fuel in that last stint to come home at the end of the podium. Then Alex Palou, Simon Pagenaud, Felix Rosenquist, Colton Herta, Robert Wickens, Joseph Newgarden, and Santino Ferrucci rounds out the top 10. Then you have Dalton Kellett, Jimmy Johnson, Sebastian Bourdais, Graham Rahal, Oliver Askew, Scott Dixon, James Hinchcliffe, Ed Carpenter, Zach Veach, Kyle Kirkwood, Kyle Kaiser, Alexander Rossi, Connor Daly, Pato O'Ward, Marcus Ericsson, Tony Kanaan, Sage Karam, Jack Harvey, and Felipe Nasser will round out the field. So guys, just before we go, do you guys, Andrew, I know you're obviously helping the staff. Are we allowed to know what track it is next week, or is it the driver's choice still a surprise?
It is still a surprise. You will have to stay tuned. There will be an announcement soon.
All right, so a surprise track next week. So obviously we've had 2 road courses so far, but I asked the question last week, what would your choice be? But now that you've seen 2 races already, guys, I'm going to force you to pick an oval for next week. Which oval would you guys like to pick? Andrew, let's start with you first this time.
So I think that this car is just great on short tracks. So I would go with Gateway. I think that it would produce a fantastic race. You would have strategy. You would have guys passing, but you'd still have to have that driver skill that comes into play on short tracks where you need to even brake a little bit into turn 1. So I would go with Gateway if it were me.
I think if it were me, I would go with the best short track on the service, which is the Milwaukee Mile. Classic IndyCar track and always puts on really good racing. Especially these guys haven't gone there in a while, so in real life, so it'd be interesting to see how they would.
I'd probably say going kind of sort of along the line that Andrew said, I'm going to pick Motegi. A little longer than Gateway, same sort of thing, kind of asymmetrical oval. I think that put on a good show. Give these guys a little bit of space, as some of these guys are still iRacing rookies, so give them a little bit of a margin of error, but give them a chance to kind of pedal the thing and put on a good show.
All right, guys, but with that all said, I think that's all we have to really talk about right now. So thank you to everyone who joined us. I think we had almost 1,600 people tuning in at the same time at some point, guys. So it was really fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed us just sitting here and shooting the shit, basically, for 90 minutes. So thank you for watching, and see you guys next time.